Hey everybody, so we're back for the top 100 and I'm now on 80 to 71. So let's get right into it, shall we? So in the number 80 position, I have Shifting Stones. Now, Shifting Stones has such a beautiful table presence and the components are amazing. And let me show you. So you have a 3x3 grid of these really thick tiles that goes in the middle and they're double-sided. And they're so like all of the orange ones have the same thing on the backside. It's the pink on the backside. So you'll have some that is orange and pink, and you'll have you'll have one that's black on one side, yellow on the other, and so on, right? And then you have your cards in your hand, and the cards will have a pattern using those tiles and a number at the top, which is how many points they're worth if you're able to move the tiles into that pattern. Now, what you'll need to do is let's say you need to flip one over, then you got to spend a card in order to flip a tile over. Or if you're going to swap a tile with another one, then that's going to cost you a card. So if you need to swap this way, then flip one over, that's going to cost you 3 cards in order to be able to do all of that, trying to score on the card that matched the pattern you're trying to do. It's so neat. It's very interesting. And of course you'll be playing and then all of a sudden, okay, great. I just got to flip one thing. But then on the other player's turn, maybe they mess up the pattern, or maybe they actually kind of fix it so it's even easier for you to get your pattern to match. And it has an interesting decision, right? Which card do you give up on to be able to do the flip and the switch in order to get your pattern? So you kind of have to decide, okay, well, I'm not going to worry about these cards. I'll use those to move my tiles around, but I'll try to score on this one and so on. And I think it's the first one to get, I want to say 7, maybe it's 8 cards, triggers the end of the game, and then you tally up the points. So neat. Love this game. Then in number 79 position, I have Railways of the World, the card game. Now, I have never played the board game version of this, but I want to. So if I ever come across it, I would actually grab it just because I like the card game version so much. And this is an older one, 2010, but this is also one that looks old. Like, it's not a beautiful, appealing game, but oh my God, it's so good. So each player plays as a different colored train, and you're going to be collecting cards and collecting routes. And then you're going to collect as well locomotives. Now, locomotives can be used as a wild in building your route, or you can play them in front of you, and it allows you to go further to take your goods from one station to the next. And you got to go through, like, you got to start at your own station to grab the goods, and then I think you can deliver to any stations at that point, but you got to have enough locomotive to make through each station. So when you flip a card over, it'll have an indication of how many cubes go on there, and you kind of pull out of a bag, put the cubes on it, and those are the goods that are at that location. Then the station also has a color around it, and that's the color of goods they will collect. So if it's a black circle, then you want to try to bring some black cubes over to that particular station, and then you score for each segment that you've traveled through. So you want to start bringing in some locomotives so you can go further and collect more points. Now, you can't go through a black station and go to the next one if you're delivering black cube. The moment you stop at a station that matched the cube, you have to deliver it there. It's neat. It's so cool. And then afterwards, at the end of the game, you also score on each station that has the most, what is the word? Kind of area control a little bit. So the more bigger routes that's connect to it, then if you own that route, then you would score that station as well. It's such a super fun game. I love it. And you have like the little plastic trains that you put on each of the routes that you build. And then you have the one that goes around the track that keeps track of your score. Great, great game. Then in number 78 position, I have Stone Age. So Stone Age is 2008. So this is an older game. I still like it. And then actually I was only introduced to it in 2018, I do believe. So 10 years later, still is an amazing game. And now it's even more so now. And I still like this one. So this is a worker placement game, and you have the board and you have all the different locations that you could send your workers to. And it's one of those where kind of like Architect of the West Kingdom, and I think that's where they get from, you can send more workers and do more there. And the way that it works with these ones is you roll the dice, and depending on the total amount of pips that you've collected with the dice, so if you had 3 workers, I think you roll 3 dice. I think that's how it works. And then if, let's say, I need 4 to get wood, and I don't remember what it is. I know gold costs you 6 pips. But so let's say it's 4 for wood, and you roll 3 dice, and you roll a 6, and then a 2, and then a 3. So technically, you only have enough to collect 2 woods. So then you would get your 2 woods like in that way. There is also the village tiles that you're collecting in these huts, and then you'll be placing that on your own board. And then there's a whole corner section here where you're kind of activating these different abilities, and you would roll the dice and you would get kind of what's on there, but then other people would get stuff that's from that as well. And then there's like the hut that you would go, you send 2 workers there, and then 3 workers come back, where I don't know how the 3rd worker just appeared. But the whole thing is so neat. It's so well designed, and still to this day, it's an amazing game. Really like this one. And then in number 77 position, I have Alhambra. This is even older, 2003. This is like my segment of my top 100 that has my older games, apparently. I played this one for the first time at my brother's house. I had purchased it and I had heard of it, and I was like, okay, I'm interested in trying this out. And I got playing it, just starting it, and I was like, oh, okay, I can tell right away I'm going to love this game. And it is so cool. So you have the ability to collect money, and there's different currencies available. There's 4 different currencies available. And then you also have the ability to spend the money to buy tiles. But each tile comes from a different builder, and that builder wants to be paid by currency of his own country. So that's why you're collecting the different currencies. Like, okay, well, I really want this one, and this one needs to be paid with green money. So I don't have quite enough green money yet. I'll need to collect some more green money. Or, great, I have the green money, and you can't make change, but I would have to overpay him. It's like, but then if you're able to pay the exact change, you're able to get like an extra action that you can do. This is great. So you're collecting these tiles, you're building this village square, I think is what it is. And then you have these, like some of the tiles will have a wall, and you can build to create the longest wall, but you can't kind of build it in a way that a segment is kind of blocked off from the village square. So you got to put this in certain ways. And then you're kind of collecting and building, and you'll have like different tile colors that'll have different value. And as you go, eventually you'll flip a card over. I think in the currency, they'll be like, okay, you score now. So then you got to stop and you score your village square as to what you've built so far. And then everybody will score at that point. Then you keep playing the game, and at one point, another card will come out and says, okay, you score again. So you don't know when you're going to score. And then you would score what you've built again, and then the longest wall, and then the different, and then like who has the majority in the different colored tiles and so on. And then you would go and then you score at the end of the game. But this game is so neat. It's so fun. And with like kind of managing the money to make sure that you pay for the proper worker for the tile that you're trying to get, it's a great game. Then in number 76 position, I have Splendor. So Splendor was created in 2014. And this is one that my kids are reluctant gamers. Most of the time I say, okay, let's play board games. The answer is no. They much rather play video games. Almost always, all the time. One time I talked my one son into playing with me, and he's like rumbled, and so I bribed him or however I got him. It's like, okay, fine, I'll play. And we played Splendor, and he's like, I really like this one. For my kid who refused to play any board games to sit back and say, wow, I really like this one. Wow. So Splendor, amazing game. And it's super neat. First of all, the components are so satisfying to play with. You have these poker chips that have these gem on it, and they're just fun to play with. So on your turn, you can collect the poker chips, and I think you can collect up to 3. Is it 4 or 3? 3 or 4 of different ones. Or you could go and collect 2 of the same one, as long as there's more than 4 in that pile. So you're collecting these poker chip gems. Then at one point, you're going to spend these poker chips to purchase the cards, and each card has a cost on it. But each card also has a gem on it. So be like, okay, well, I'm going to spend this ruby and this emerald, and I get to collect this diamond card. And now you always have a diamond available to purchase other cards with. And some of the cards will become that they are worth points as well. So they'll give you victory points at the end. And I think it's first one to reach a certain amount of victory points going to trigger the end. And then when you have cards that kind of match, at the top you have like the royals. So if you have like 2 blues, 2 green, and 2 red cards, then you would get to collect that particular royal, which would give you additional point as well. It's just so very satisfying to play. And then as you start trading, you get more cards, so you can go for the bigger cards and then continue collecting the gems and then get better cards. It's a lot of fun. My son said so. So number 75 position, I have evolution. So evolution is an interesting game. You have your species that you start with. So it's a card that has your species on it, and you keep track of your population and your size so you can become bigger. But you're going to be collecting traits that you're going to give to your particular species, and that'll give them special ability. So maybe eventually you'll collect fat tissue, and that allows you to store food. Or, maybe you will have where you produce easily, so your population will be easier to increase, and different things like that. So you're going to have you have a shell, so then you're more protected from attacks from carnivore. Or you could be that where all of a sudden your species becomes a carnivore, and instead of eating the plants, you're eating the other animals. Now be careful with that, because if the other animals are too big for you to attack or protected in some other way, then you will have to eat your own animal as well if you have other species going on also. But that could be a strategy where you have one animal that reproduces super easy, and then you have the other one that just eats it. Because the goal is to have collected the most food at the end of the game, and whoever had the most food wins the game. Now, at the beginning of the round, everybody's going to put a card into the watering hole, and then you flip it over, and then the value on it is how much food goes into the watering hole. And then you take turn collecting food from it, feeding your species. If you're unable to feed your animals, they starve, they die. So then you would lose the population for it, and so on. Every time I play this game, now I played it the first time and I liked it. And for some reason, my kids really like this one. So they were like, oh, let's play Evolution again. And I'm like, okay. So we play Evolution, and I would play it again, and I liked it even more. And then I would play it again, and then I liked it even more. And then the last time I played it, I was like, oh my God, this is the most epic, wonderful game I've ever played of Evolution. And it's just, every time I play it, I like it even more. So Evolution is my number 75. Then in number 74 position, I have Power Grid Factory Manager. So I have Power Grid, the card game, and I have this one. I've played all 3, and for some reason, this one is my favorite. Now, this one does not play like Power Grid. This has a complete different play of it. It just has the similar theme, so the artwork looks the same as well. But with this one, you're building a factory. So you have your workers, and you'll be buying these robots or these machinery and then different things to add to your factory. But in the meantime, you're going to keep track of your power consumption, because you need to run those machines, and that's going to require a certain amount of power. So if you're not generating enough, you'll need to kind of procure some more, and then you got to keep track of the cost of the electricity. So the electricity is still in play here, but it's more about building your factory and buying the different things. So now if you buy, is it a robot, it will free up some of your workers to do other things. Now your workers is also what you'll be using for bidding on, what was it you're bidding on? I think you're bidding on the electricity cost of the electricity access as well. So, but you're bidding on these different things, and then you're buying these tiles, and then you're bringing them into your factory, building up your factory. The whole thing was so pleasant. I enjoy this. Now, this is with Power Grid, like, you're building your routes, you can kind of block each other. There will be a bit of where the other player can kind of mess you up. This one, not as much, because you really are building your own thing. But I just find it so satisfying with collecting the thing, putting it in and you're building up your factory. I am really loving that. So that's why that's my number 74. Then in number 73, I have Planet Unknown. Now, if you've played it, maybe you're like, why is it so low? Because I haven't played it a lot. I don't own this game. I played it for the first time at FallCon in, I guess, late summer, early fall. And it was neat. Well, let me show you a picture. So it plays super cool. So first you have this rondelle, or this Lazy Susan, I guess is the better term. This Lazy Susan in the middle of the board. And everybody puts a little arrow that is a point to one spot on there. So everybody puts their arrow. And then on your turn, you will pivot it until you get the shape that you want to collect. And then there's where your arrow is pointing, you get the option of two shapes. Okay, well, I want this one, so I'll pivot it there. Then I'll grab this shape. Everybody else, wherever their arrow is pointing, they now have to pick one of those two options. They don't get to kind of decide which shape they get. They get those two options. So then you take the piece, and then you add that to your planet. And you're adding these things to your planet. You're trying to create these different clusters. You're trying to create, fill it in as much as possible as well. Now, you'll have some, is it meteorites or that will land on there, but then those will affect your score. So you're going to have some rovers as well that you can send to pick those up and clear it out. Then you can score that line as well. It was neat. Now, when we played with the variable powers, because there's one side that all the planets are the same, and then you have the other side that have special abilities. And then you also have this kind of technology track where you can kind of upgrade and move things up. And depending on which planet you're playing as, how that would be influenced. I had the black hole one, which was challenging because I'm not building in the middle. I have to build around. So getting around my planet was very difficult. And I got both rovers stuck on the same side at one point, so I couldn't clear out the meteorites on the one side. But so that was that part of it. But then with my track, I could increase my water track, and it would kind of zigzag through all the other tracks, and it would give me all sorts of abilities. So building up my water track made a lot of sense for me. So I would concentrate on putting water onto my black hole planet, right? I ended up losing by so much. I think getting my rover stuck and then having the difficulty of maneuvering really hurt me. Plus, it was my first time playing, and I didn't really know, but I think it was the first time for most everybody playing with me that day, so not really an excuse. But even though I lost so badly, it was still such a great game, and I really enjoyed it. Then in number 72, I have One Deck Dungeon. Now, this is a small, tiny game, and it's 1 to 2 players, and that's it. And then, so, kind of tiny epic size. Let me show you what's in there. So you have the different warriors that you can or characters that you can play as. Now, all the characters are female. And then depending on the character that you decide how many of the dice of each available dice you're going to have. So maybe you get 1 yellow dice, 1 pink dice, and then 1 blue dice. And then the other character gets different things, right? So together you're going to put your resources together. This is a cooperative game. And you're trying to make it through the dungeon. And you'll flip a door. You'll have 4 doors available. You'll flip a door, and it'll either be a monster or it'll be a trap that you need to make through. So, and on the card, it'll have different requirements. So it'll be like, hey, well, you need to have a number 4 in this dice, and then this one needs to be a 6, but you can accumulate multiple dice to come up with it, and so on. And then you would roll your dice and mitigate. Now, the first few times until you level up your character, it's going to beat you up. But then you're going to level up your characters. You're going to start getting better abilities. And then when you win one of the cards, it'll either give you more dice if you want to tuck it in under the dice area, or you can use it for experience points and increase your experience points, or you can use it and tuck it on the bottom of your card to get the special spell ability. Tons of multi-use cards in this one. Now also your deck, your dungeon deck, is also your time. So some of the things on your card, if you don't complete, could be like, okay, well, you didn't complete this, so you take this many wounds, and then you kind of take your health down, or you can lose time. It's like, okay, well, you've lost 3 times, so then you take the deck and you burn 3 cards. Not physically burn, you just get rid of 3 cards. Now your deck is getting smaller, and because you've got to try to accumulate and do as much as possible until you reach the end of that deck. Then you got to face the big boss monster. And I think you have you do this multiple times for each level. And if you reach the boss monster too soon, you're not going to be ready. So when you're burning the cards, that's not a good thing. I like this game so much. When I played it, I went to visit back home in New Brunswick. And my cousin was on vacation as well. So me and him would meet up at noon every day, from noon to midnight. And we'd play this game the whole time, from noon to midnight. We played it so much. My aunt was like, are you guys still at this game? It was ridiculous. We played it to death, and I still would play it some more. It's a great game. Now, they just came out with a Galaxy version as well, One Deck Galaxy. I don't have that one yet. I'm probably going to want it eventually, but the whole thing is amazing. Such a great game. And then in number 71 position, I have Shadows Amsterdam. And I played this one for the first time just maybe a month ago now, maybe 2 months ago. So a few weeks ago anyways. And this one is cool. I was really impressed. So it has a Dixit-like feel to it. It's a Dixit, maybe more like Mysterium. And then also like Mystic Path, if you've played that one. But you have this map, and on the map, each location has a different picture, artwork, and then the board changes up, so it's always different. And you start in the middle, and then you're playing in 2 teams, and you gotta send your team to collect different clues on this map and then deliver them to your client. Because basically there's a crime of some sort. The police is not doing a very good job, so they hire 2 private detective companies, and both teams are their own private detective companies. Some of the clues are specific to one, some of the clues are for both, so the first one there is the one who gets it. And you got to go around, collect the 3 clues, avoid the police, because the police don't want you messing with their investigation, and then deliver those clues to your guests. So the one players that are going to be the clue giver is going to have this little map that you can look at what's going on, and it shows on there where the clues are. And you have this tiny little token that kind of keeps track of where your people are. Is that, okay, great, well, I'm going to send them there to pick up the clue. So if you give a 1-card clue, it means it's 1 away. Now you can give 2 cards to say the location I'm sending you to is 2 away. Both cards is for the location you're sending them to. But that opens up the possibility. So it's like, okay, well, this is going to be like 3 because there's the blank area, and then maybe there could be more. But you give them 2 cards. Now there are 6 potential locations they could go to. And then be like, okay, I'm going to give you this one, and I'm going to give you this one. And or maybe it's just a 1 clue. So I'm going to give them this cake, because on there's a kitchen with the oven, and I'm hoping that they'll look at the cake and be like, oh, kitchen, she wants us to go to the kitchen. And then they'll look at it and be like, red cake, so it's about the red, and that card has a lot of red, so let's go there. Like, no! So it's interesting. It is fun. It can be frustrating. We played boys against girls, and I was playing with my friend Glenda and my sister. And every time Glenda's like, maybe this is where she wants us to go. And every time she was right. And every time my sister would talk her out of it. No, I think maybe she would want us to go here. And Glenda's like, oh, well, she's your sister. Maybe you know her better. Well, obviously my sister does not know me better at all. but it was so much fun. Now, if you end up hitting the police officers more than 3 times, you're eliminated. The other team plays automatically, and that's how we lost the first round. We did manage to win the second round, though. So there's that going. But yeah, this game was so neat. I really liked it. So that's it for this installment of my top 100. Be sure to tune in next week to get the next one, and that'll be what? So 70 to 61. In the meantime, I'm also doing the top 50 with my friend Carla. So I'll be doing the top 50 on here as well. But if you want to see what Carla's picks are, or if you want to get what's on my list ahead of time, you can go to the Board Game Specialist podcast and listen to those there. I'm also on Instagram as Mel's_boardgame_room. And my Facebook page is Mel's Board Game Room. And my YouTube channel is Mel's Board Game Room. So bye, everybody.